Karma always comes around. The day I was forced to lose my baby, my husband was busy sharing a hotel bed with my sister. The surgery went wrong. I bled out on the table and did not survive. There was no funeral. They didn't even bother. Instead, they dumped my ashes into a gutter like I was nothing more than garbage. 2 weeks later, my husband cashed in the life insurance and used it to throw a grand wedding for him and my sister. It wasn't until after my passing that I learned the truth. Every single morning, the milk I drank had been drugged. They'd been poisoning me for months, setting me up to lose the baby. But now I'm back. And this time, I'll make them pay for every last breath they stole from me. Chapter 1. Michael, I bet Jenny's in a lot of pain right now. Lily said with a smirk, her eyes fixed on the buzzing phone beside her. She was curled up against my husband, looking completely content as if nothing could disturb their perfect little world. Michael frowned, clearly annoyed by the constant ringing, and without a second thought, he grabbed the phone and turned it off. Today was supposed to be my birthday, a day he'd forgotten completely. But that wasn't the worst of it. Hours earlier, as I doubled over in pain, I called him, begging for help, hoping he'd take me to the hospital. Instead, he brushed me off coldly. Left with no other choice, I had to call an ambulance myself. I never made it to the hospital. As I lay there waiting for help, the pain became unbearable, and everything went dark. I slipped into unconsciousness, never to wake again. I bled out that day. A miscarriage, severe blood loss, and delayed treatment. My life came to an end on my 23rd birthday. Along with me, the child I was carrying, the child who never even had a chance to grow up, also did not survive. And where was my husband? In a hotel room, wrapped in my sister's arms. There was no funeral for me. Instead of mourning, they tossed my ashes into a filthy gutter. 2 weeks later, Michael used the life insurance payout to throw a grand wedding, marrying Lily in the kind of ceremony I could have only dreamed of. That pathetic woman was doomed from the start. Lily sneered. Her only smart move was buying a life insurance policy. Lily, dear, you're the lucky one. My foster mother chimed in, beaming with pride. You finally got what you wanted, marrying Michael. At the wedding, she wore a smile that was so wide, so happy. Thank you, Mom. Lily said, grinning. We couldn't have done it without you. Michael and I will take good care of you from now on. The three of them stood there, united in their happiness, while I watched helpless, heartbroken, and furious. I had no idea my so-called family had planned my demise all along. Later, I learned the truth. Every morning, they slipped drugs into the milk I drank. It wasn't an accident that I lost the baby, it was part of their plan. I still can't believe it. The people I loved, the people I trusted, had conspired against me. Tears burned in my eyes as I realized my entire life had been reduced to a cruel joke for them. But if there's another life, if I get a second chance, there's no way I'll let them get away with it. They will pay in blood. Chapter 2. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in my old bedroom. The same familiar wedding decorations stared back at me from the vanity table. It was the night before my wedding to Michael. I instinctively touched my flat stomach, feeling the emptiness where my child should have been. Don't worry, baby. Mommy's going to make sure they pay for what they did to us. I whispered, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. I blinked back the tears and forced myself to stay calm. Just then, Lily burst into the room, her face lit up with a fake smile. Jenny, according to tradition, the bride can't sleep in the wedding room the night before the ceremony. She said, her voice dripping with sweetness. So you'll have to stay at a hotel tonight. But don't worry, I'll take good care of Michael for you. Her words sliced through me like a knife. I remembered how, in my last life, she had worn that same outfit to seduce Michael. The memory of it made my blood boil. From the time we were kids, she always took what I loved. It didn't matter that my foster mother had already given her everything, the best clothes, the best toys. She still wanted what was mine. Even if she didn't want it, she'd ruin it just so I couldn't have it. Jenny, these traditions are important. It's all for your own good. Michael chimed in, trying to sound righteous. But I knew better. This was just an excuse to give them a free pass to hook up behind my back. Last time, I'd been stupid enough to believe their lies. I left without a second thought, completely unaware that my own husband was already sleeping with my sister. But not this time. I swallowed the anger burning in my throat and forced a smile. Sure, I'll stay at the hotel tonight. Let them think I was still the same gullible girl. I'd give them all the space they needed to play out their little affair. After all, if fate had given me a second chance, I wasn't about to waste it. Before leaving, I made sure to leave a little surprise behind. I tucked it away in a hidden corner of the vanity, where they wouldn't notice it until it was too late. Later that night, sitting in my hotel room, I watched everything unfold on my phone. Michael and Lily were in the middle of their little rendezvous, completely oblivious to the fact that they were being watched. But I wasn't the only one watching. I'd made a quick call earlier, reporting some suspicious activity in a certain apartment. Just as things were heating up, the door burst open and several officers stormed the room. The look on their faces was priceless. Chapter 3. The scene was beyond awkward. Michael and Lily, still tangled in the sheets, had no time to react before the police barged in and slapped handcuffs on them. When questioned, they stuttered and stumbled over their words, too embarrassed to give any real explanation. And if that wasn't bad enough, the wedding photo of me and Michael hanging on the wall said it all. The police officer took one glance at it and then at Lily, a woman who clearly wasn't the bride. Seriously, dude? One of the officers muttered, shaking his head. You've got some nerve. Just got married and already messing around. Watching the live feed from my phone, I couldn't help but grin. I wanted to high-five the guy for calling him out. Lily was shaking like a leaf, her lips trembling as she tried to come up with some excuse. Michael, on the other hand, stood there in silence, his head hung low, too ashamed to meet anyone's gaze. I have to admit, watching them get caught like this was so much more satisfying than confronting them myself. Now, they were the ones squirming. They couldn't hide, couldn't lie their way out of it. It was all out in the open. Eventually, the police hauled them away, and I casually locked my phone. Not my problem. Let them figure out how to get themselves out of this mess. I wasn't about to answer any late-night calls begging me to bail them out. Funny how, in my previous life, Lily's pregnancy timeline had lined up so closely with mine. Now I knew why. It all started that night, my supposed wedding eve, right in the room I had painstakingly decorated for my big day. Michael, tell me, who do you love more? Me or my sister? Lily had probably teased him just like that, pretending to be coy. Please, it's you obviously. Michael had replied without missing a beat. Your sister's got nothing going for her, no body, and those scars. God, every time I look at her, I want to throw up. And her face. Don't even get me started. He'd added with a sneer. She's got nothing on you. I smiled coldly, running my fingers over the scars on my arms. Scars that had been with me for years, marking the pain I'd endured, the reminders of everything I'd been through. But I wasn't that broken girl anymore. I saved the video, every last second of their little performance. It would come in handy later when it was time to settle the score. The more they enjoyed themselves now, the harder they'd fall. This was just the first act in a much bigger play. After all, I wasn't back for mercy. I was back for revenge. Chapter 4. I made sure to return home early on the morning of my wedding. Unsurprisingly, neither Michael nor Lily had come back yet. Perfect. I used the opportunity to hide anything valuable in the house, including the dowry I'd stupidly handed over in my past life. Back then, I'd been so blinded by love that I had willingly drained my savings to marry a man who had nothing. I paid for the wedding, the house, and all of it, thinking it was for us. But really, it was all for him. And what did I get in return? Betrayal. Even after my passing, he didn't stop. He had my ashes tossed into a gutter as if I meant nothing. Like I was a piece of trash. Classic case of being the farmer who took in a snake, and I sure got bit. But this time around, I wasn't about to make the same mistake. Michael and Lily could rot in the mess they'd made. Let them deal with each other. I was just finishing up when I heard the front door creak open. Seconds later, voices floated in from the hallway. I stayed quiet, listening. "Just be careful," my foster mother was saying, her voice low. "Make sure that girl has no idea what's going on." I smirked and stepped out into the hallway. "Oh. And what exactly is it I'm not supposed to know?" They froze like deer caught in headlights. None of them could look me in the eye. I had to bite back a laugh. The memory of last night's disaster was still fresh in my mind, and their expressions now were priceless. How could I not find this hilarious? "And nothing," Michael stammered, rushing over to take my hand. I shook him off, barely able to hide my disgust. "Where were you guys this morning? And why was the door left wide open?" I asked, pretending to sound annoyed. What if someone broke in? Then, as if I'd just remembered something, I gasped dramatically. "Oh no! The money! And the gold jewelry Michael bought for me, it's all gone." They all rushed into the bedroom, only to find it in total chaos. I had turned the place upside down earlier, making it look like a robbery had taken place. "We should call the police," I suggested, pulling out my phone. "That was a lot of money. They'll definitely want to investigate." Michael nearly jumped out of his skin, grabbing my arm to stop me. No. It's our wedding day. Calling the police would ruin the celebration. It's bad luck." He shot a glance at my foster mother, who immediately caught on and started backing him up. "Yeah, there's no need to bring the police into this. It's just a little money. We don't want to curse the marriage." "Little money?" I raised an eyebrow. "That was $50,000, Mom. You said that was my dowry." Lily, not grasping the situation yet, chimed in, clearly annoyed. "Yeah, and you promised that money would be for my sister. We can't just let it go." She whipped out her phone, ready to dial the police. Chapter 5. Smack! I said, "No cops. Are you deaf or just plain stupid?" My foster mother's voice was harsh, her patience long gone. Before Lily even had a chance to react, my foster mother's hand came down hard across her face. "Mom! Why?" Lily gasped, clutching her cheek in shock, her eyes wide with disbelief. Honestly, I wasn't surprised. Growing up, I'd been on the receiving end of those slaps more times than I could count. But watching Lily get one? I'd be lying if I said it didn't bring me a bit of satisfaction. "Get out of here," my foster mother snapped, pointing to the door. "Nobody's calling the police today. We'll handle this ourselves." Lily stood there frozen, not sure what to do. But our mother wasn't interested in her hesitation. "Go!" she barked, and Lily, still clutching her cheek, finally scrambled out of the room. Then, just like that, my foster mother turned to me, her voice suddenly soft and soothing. There," she cooed, trying to calm me down. I could see the fear in her eyes though. She wasn't worried about me or the missing money, she was terrified that if the cops showed up, they might figure out what had really gone down last night. She needed this whole thing to stay buried. Perfect. I'd let her think she was in control. Meanwhile, I was taking back what was mine. In my previous life, she used guilt like a weapon, squeezing every last cent out of me. She took my dowry, every bit of it, and didn't even bother to give me anything for my wedding. Not even a proper celebration. Just a cheap, half-hearted meal for the four of us, and I was the one who footed the bill. She always played the martyr, reminding me how hard it was raising me and Lily on her own. "You owe us," she'd say. "And now that you're married, it's time to think about Lily's future." And I did. I gave them everything. And how did they repay me? By plotting against me and my unborn child. They didn't deserve compassion. They didn't even deserve to be called human. That's why, on my wedding night, I made sure Michael drank himself into a stupor. Then, I faked a little blood on the sheets for dramatic effect and slept in the guest room. Without him next to me, I slept better than I had in years. The next morning, I went straight to the insurance company. I canceled the life insurance policy I'd foolishly taken out on myself and replaced it with a new one on Michael. And guess who the beneficiary was? Me. When I got back home, Lily had already moved in, just like she had before. Same excuse, to something about needing a place to stay. It didn't matter. In fact, I welcomed it. This was exactly what I wanted. I told Michael I'd be leaving on a business trip for a while and made sure to tell him, with a perfectly innocent smile, to take good care of Lily while I was gone. Not that he needed the encouragement, he would have taken care of her whether I asked him to or not. I was giving them all the time and space they needed. Just the two of them, alone in the house. If they didn't end up in bed together, it would be a complete waste of my efforts. And when I got back, well, that's when the real fun would start. Chapter 6. One evening at dinner, Lily dropped a bombshell. "I'm pregnant," she announced, her voice dripping with smug satisfaction as she placed the pregnancy test results on the table. My foster mother's face lit up immediately. She didn't waste a second before piling Lily's plate with food. "Eat more, Lily. You need to keep your strength up for the baby." I waited, letting the moment drag out just long enough, and then pulled out my own surprise. "How funny," I said, casually setting my pregnancy test results next to hers. "Looks like I'm pregnant too. One night, and it happened just like that." I flashed a sweet smile at Michael. "Michael, you're going to be a dad. Isn't that exciting?" Before he could respond, I turned toward Lily, feigning surprise. "By the way, sis, when did you even start dating? You never mentioned a boyfriend. People might start talking if they find out you're pregnant without one." Michael's face turned beet red, and then extremely pale. He couldn't even look at me. Meanwhile, my foster mother's smile dropped, her expression hardening like she'd just swallowed something bitter. "Well, Michael," she said, her voice low and deliberate. "Now that both of them are pregnant, you'd better take good care of them. Both of them." Her eyes flicked between him and me, and the message was clear: she was still scheming, still playing her twisted game. In my past life, I hadn't known the full story. I just thought Lily and I had ended up pregnant at the same time by coincidence. I didn't realize until much later that the child she was carrying was Michael's. But this time, I was going to make sure she felt every ounce of pain she'd caused me. "Sweetheart," Michael interrupted, his voice shaky. "I made you some warm milk. Don't forget to drink it before you leave for work, okay?" I glanced down at the glass. The milk. The same milk that, in my past life, had caused my miscarriage. I never liked milk, but my foster mother had insisted. "It's good for the baby," she'd said, forcing me to drink it every morning. But now I knew better. Yesterday, I'd seen her pull Michael aside, whispering frantically in the guest room. She must have given him the drugs, the same ones they'd used on me before. They'd seen the insurance policy I'd accidentally left in the drawer. They thought they were being clever, planning to get rid of me again and cash in on the payout. But not this time. While Michael was busy in the kitchen, I swapped the glasses, pouring Lily's milk into mine and taking hers for myself. "I already drank the milk," I called out as I grabbed my bag. "I'm in a rush, so I'll grab breakfast on the way to work." I walked out the door, making a beeline for a nearby cafe. I bought myself a fresh breakfast and some real milk, but all I could think about was Lily sipping down her glass at home. Soon enough, she'd start feeling the effects. And when she did, she'd realize that betrayal comes at a cost. Chapter 7. "Jenny, you've got to come to the hospital. Something's happened to Lily." Michael's voice was frantic, but I wasn't exactly caught off guard. I already knew what had happened. The camera in the living room had captured everything. Just a few hours ago, Michael had been reassuring her, all confident and cocky. "It's fine. You're only a few weeks along. Nothing's going to happen." Famous last words. It wasn't long before Lily started bleeding profusely. The blood-soaked clothes were bright red and terrifying. She collapsed, convulsing on the floor, her face turning a sickly shade of white. Michael freaked out and didn't even bother to put on his pants before he called 911. What happened? I asked, feigning concern as I stood outside the operating room. She was perfectly fine this morning. How did it get this bad so fast? She just started bleeding. So much blood. Michael's voice trembled, his eyes glued to his hands, still stained with Lily's blood. He looked like a man haunted, and frankly, I wasn't surprised this was something that would stick with him for a long time. A doctor finally emerged from the operating room, pulling down his mask with a sigh. We managed to save her, but the baby didn't make it. And I'm afraid she won't be able to have children in the future. Michael's knees gave out. He slumped against the wall, sliding down until he hit the cold hospital floor. This is all my fault. If only I had. His voice cracked as he slapped himself harder with each hit. The guilt was eating him alive. I watched him fall apart, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. My hand drifted to my stomach. This was justice. They deserved every bit of this. Oh, come on, I said, crouching down next to him, my tone light and comforting. You can't blame yourself for this. It's not like you caused her miscarriage. I put a hand on his shoulder, pretending to care. But honestly, touching him made my skin crawl. Michael stayed silent, his face a perfect picture of guilt. He knew damn well what had happened. They'd been sneaking around behind my back while I was working, and now he had to face the consequences. He couldn't even look me in the eye. The irony of it all was almost too much. In my past life, Michael had murdered me along with my unborn child. And now, without even realizing it, he'd done the same to Lily's baby. Karma's funny like that. It always comes back around. Chapter 8. Though Lily had pulled through, the miscarriage had left her weak and fragile, a shell of her former self. And the best part? Neither of them had any clue that the milk intended to harm me had ended up in her stomach instead. My foster mother stormed into the hospital as soon as she heard the news. She didn't even pause to catch her breath before barking orders at me. Your sister's in bad shape. You're going to stay here and take care of her. I raised an eyebrow. I'm pregnant too, remember? How exactly do you expect me to look after her? She scoffed, waving off my excuse. If you can't be bothered to help and then pay for a nurse. You're her sister. It's your responsibility. Of course. Lily was her daughter too, but why should she lift a finger? In my past life, they'd treated me like an ATM, draining me dry until I had nothing left to give. But this time, I wasn't playing their game. I'm out of money, I said flatly. Spent it all on the wedding. You know that. That shut her up real quick. She knew full well that I had paid for everything. She hadn't contributed a single cent. And besides, I added, doesn't Lily have a boyfriend? Why isn't he here, taking care of her? What kind of man lets his girlfriend go through something like this alone? I shot a look at Michael, who was standing there, head down, too ashamed to speak. Not my problem. They could figure it out themselves. I didn't care what happened to Lily. To be honest, I wouldn't have minded if she'd never made it off that operating table. Jenny, she's your sister, Michael said, his voice thick with guilt. He glanced at Lily's unconscious form, still hooked up to the machines. If you really can't take care of her, then I'll do it. Of course, he would. He had no choice. After all, the baby she'd just lost had been his. And it was he who'd slipped the drugs into the milk that caused the miscarriage. He knew what had happened, but he wouldn't dare say it out loud. I didn't say a word either. I was saving that little bombshell for later, for the perfect moment. Fine, I said, waving him off. You take care of her. Without another glance, I walked out of the hospital, enjoying the rare freedom of having the house to myself. No, Michael. No, Lily. Just peace and quiet. In my past life, Michael had always played the doting brother-in-law, using me as an excuse to spend more time with Lily. He'd even washed her clothes, claiming he was just being helpful. When I confronted him about it, he called me paranoid. "You're overthinking things," he'd said. "I'm just doing what any good brother-in-law would do." Yeah, right. He'd taken care of her, all right, straight into bed. So now, if he wanted to play nursemaid to Lily again, I wasn't going to stand in his way. He'd caused this mess. He could clean it up. Chapter 9. What the hell? Why won't the door open? Michael was fumbling with his keys, trying to unlock the front door. No matter how hard he twisted the key, the lock wouldn't budge. That's because, while they'd been at the hospital, I'd had the locks changed. Maybe the lock's broken. Just knock. My foster mother said, already growing impatient. Jenny's probably inside. She started pounding on the door, her voice sharp and demanding. Jenny! Open the damn door. Don't make me come in there and deal with you. I leaned against the door from the inside, smiling to myself. You can knock all you want. I'm not opening it. Her voice rose to a furious pitch. You ungrateful brat. Are you really going to lock us out just because Michael helped Lily for a few days? Who do you think you are? And this is Michael's house. She shouted as though that gave her any authority. You don't get to make the rules here. I almost laughed out loud. She really thought she could intimidate me. She seemed to have forgotten who'd been paying her bills for all these years. Who'd sent money every month to keep her and Lily afloat. No, really, I said, my tone dripping with mock innocence. Why don't you ask Michael whose house this is? There was silence outside the door. In her mind, Michael was the one with the house, the savings, the future. But the truth was, he couldn't even lift his head right now. He knew as well as I did that this house was mine. I'd worked my ass off to save for the down payment. I'd paid for the renovations. Michael hadn't contributed a single cent. Back when we were planning the wedding, I'd lied to my foster mother, telling her that Michael had bought the house and put my name on the deed. I'd done it because I knew she'd never approve of the marriage otherwise. And in return, she'd demanded a $50,000 dowry, claiming it was to help Lily with her future wedding. I had been desperate back then, so I'd agreed. I drained my savings, handed over the money, and pretended it was from Michael. And what did I get in return? A husband who plotted to murder me for the insurance payout and marry my sister. But not this time. This time, I was taking back everything they'd stolen from me. Chapter 10. The next day at work, I saw my adoptive mother and Lily making a scene. I'm so unlucky. I took pity and raised an ungrateful daughter. Just because her husband took care of her sister in the hospital, she locked us out. So heartless, treating family this way. She sat in the company lobby, crying loudly. Seeing me, she dragged a sickly Lily over. Look, her sister just left the hospital. How can she be so cruel? Lily shed tears on cue, taking all the blame. Sis, it's my fault. I shouldn't have let Michael take care of me. I shouldn't have caused you trouble. She cried pitifully, drawing sympathy from onlookers. How can a daughter be so ungrateful? Her parents raised her, and this is how she repays them. They shouldn't have saved her from the trash. Unaware of the truth, people took their side, thinking I was heartless. She's my adopted daughter. Please help us get justice. My adoptive mother clung to my pants, determined to embarrass me. I looked around at familiar faces, seeing disbelief. At work, I was kind and approachable. They couldn't believe I was the ungrateful daughter my adoptive mother described. Chapter 11. My adoptive mother is right. She does have an ungrateful daughter. I pointed at Lily. But that daughter is her, not me. Silence fell. My adoptive mother stared at me in shock. You're lying. Lily is my good daughter. You're the ungrateful one. I leaned close, smiling, and played a video on my phone for her. Give me that phone. Enraged, she tried to grab my phone, but I quickly pulled it away. I turned up the volume, and the company lobby was soon filled with the embarrassing sounds from the video. Michael, who do you like more, my sister or me? Of course, it's you. She has no figure and is covered in disgusting scars. She makes me want to puke. Besides, she has no looks to speak of. How can she compare to you? The explicit conversation between Lily and Michael caused an uproar among the onlookers. I held up my phone, letting everyone see the video. They immediately recognized Lily. Wow, she's got a great figure, but she's sleeping with her sister's husband. A man commented, and everyone else cast scornful glances at Lily. Stop looking. You can't watch this. Lily snapped out of her shock and rushed to grab my phone, but it was too late. Everyone had seen enough. Adoptive mother, you should see this clearly. The ungrateful daughter is Lily, not me. I let her stay in my house, and she repaid me by seducing my husband. She even got pregnant by him. Now, she thinks I'm being petty. Does she deserve any sympathy? My adoptive mother was stunned, realizing I knew everything. But it wasn't over. I wouldn't let them off so easily. Chapter 12. People say those who take from others should be grateful, but you, adoptive mother, are different. You take everything without remorse. She had called me ungrateful, but now I'd show everyone who the real ingrate was. You ungrateful girl, how dare you accuse me of that? I pulled out a thick stack of documents, handing them to the onlookers. These were the records of the money I had sent them over the years, including all the extra money they demanded for holidays and other occasions. Isn't it true? You made me do all the chores, and if I didn't do them well, you'd beat me with sticks or chairs. That's child abuse, you know. I rolled up my sleeves, showing the scars and old bruises on my arms. There wasn't a single spot of unblemished skin, making the sight unbearable for those around me. No wonder Jenny wore long sleeves even in summer. She didn't want us to see. How could a mother be so cruel? A colleague patted my shoulder, expressing sympathy. In my past life, I hid my scars fearing people's judgment. Michael had pursued me fervently, claiming he didn't care about my scars. I was touched and accepted his advances, only to find out after my death how much he despised them. You ungrateful girl! I took you in, fed you, and you accuse me of abuse? My adoptive mother got up, pointing at me in anger. Shall I ask the neighbors back home to testify about how you abused me? You! She turned purple with rage, dragging Lily away. She feared I would expose her further. Now everyone knew who the real ingrate was. She had shouted thief to hide her own guilt. Since she had caused a scene at my workplace, I'd send her a gift at her hospital. An eye for an eye. Chapter 13. Not long after, good news came from the hospital. My adoptive mother had been fired. I had sent an anonymous letter to the hospital, reporting her for stealing prescription drugs, specifically mifepristone. This drug wasn't available in pharmacies, only in hospitals. She had stolen it to mix into my milk, causing my miscarriage. Their plan was for Michael to divorce me and marry Lily after my miscarriage. Since a man couldn't file for divorce during his wife's pregnancy, they came up with this vile plan. But they didn't know that Lily had drunk the drugged milk instead. The three of them had conspired together, but their plan backfired. Jenny, we were wrong. Please, in the name of the 20 years I raised you, let us stay. Homeless, my adoptive mother and Lily came to my door pleading. They could work to support themselves, but they chose to leech off me. Lily, who had dropped out of high school, never worked, spending her days on her phone and nights out with shady people. She only behaved when she moved in with me, having no friends in the area. Then she set her sights on my husband, using her looks to seduce him. Now, because of him, she could never have children. It served her right. Sorry, I'm petty and unforgiving. I can't overlook your misdeeds. Go find Michael. Maybe he'll take you in. Hearing this, my adoptive mother dropped her act and started banging on my door. Ungrateful girl, don't go too far. Was this too far? If she thought this was too far, I'd show her what going too far really meant. I called the police, reporting them for disturbing the peace and damaging my property. Within 3 minutes, the police arrived and removed them. The response time was impressively quick. Chapter 14. Ever since I locked them out, Michael had been bombarding me with messages and calls. At first, he angrily accused me of being petty and jealous of his care for Lily. He claimed he was helping Lily for my sake. When I ignored him, he switched to begging for forgiveness. "Jenny, I'm sorry. It was Lily who seduced me. I'm sorry. I promise I'll never make the same mistake again. Please forgive me." I saved his messages for future use. Michael likely realized their affair was exposed and was now desperate for my forgiveness. At first, he waited outside my office every morning. I informed the security guards about the situation. The guards, feeling sorry for me, chased him away each time he appeared. When he stopped coming to my office, he started waiting outside my home, hoping I would give him another chance. Seeing him on the doorbell camera, I chose to stay at a hotel rather than deal with him. A man like Michael, who could harm his own child, didn't deserve another chance. I quickly prepared the divorce papers and gathered evidence of his infidelity. "Jenny, are you forgiving me? I knew you still loved me." "Love you? Never." I called him, suppressing my urge to tear him apart. He was shameless. I must have been blind in my past life to choose him. "Come home tomorrow. We need to talk." He eagerly agreed, thinking I couldn't let him go. Little did he know, he was in for a surprise. Chapter 15. "Jenny, I missed you. These flowers are for you." Michael greeted me with a smile, holding a bouquet of red roses. This was the first time he had ever bought me flowers. Even during our courtship, he never bought me any. I paid for the wedding flowers myself. Now, trying to win me over, he bought flowers. I stepped back, looking at him coldly. "Sign the papers on the table and get out. I never want to see you again." "Papers?" Seeing my cold attitude, Michael looked confused. But when he saw the divorce papers, his face darkened. "Jenny, do we really need to divorce? I made a mistake, but all men do. Can't you give me another chance? Besides, you're pregnant with my child. Who would want you with a kid?" Michael's expression twisted, revealing his true nature. He couldn't hide his anger anymore. "Who I marry is none of your concern. A man like you doesn't deserve a second chance. In my past life, he killed me and my child, scattering our ashes in a drainage ditch. He didn't deserve forgiveness, and I didn't believe he would change. You want me to leave with nothing? No way. If I can't be happy, neither can you. You forced me to this." Michael stepped closer, his eyes filled with malice. "You couldn't control yourself, and you blame me?" My words enraged him. He grabbed my neck, pinning me to the ground. Even in this new life, he wanted to kill me. Such scum didn't deserve forgiveness. "Help!" I screamed for help, and soon neighbors rushed in, pulling him off me. I had left the door open, anticipating such a situation. It was a weekend, so most neighbors were home and could help quickly. Michael was taken away by the police for assault. Before he left, I handed the police the remaining drugs he had hidden, explaining the situation. Seeing his shocked face, I gave him a small, satisfied smile. Such scum deserved to face the consequences of his actions. Chapter 16. Despite being arrested, Michael refused to divorce, claiming he cared for the child. He played the emotional card, but I wasn't really pregnant. I filed for divorce in court, submitting evidence of his infidelity. When Michael learned I wasn't pregnant, he was stunned. It was just a delayed period. The doctor made a mistake. I laughed, while his face darkened. He had lost his last chance to turn things around. The court ruled in my favor, and he lost everything. On the day of the divorce, Michael was brought to the courthouse in handcuffs. The cold metal suited him perfectly. He had lost weight, looking gaunt and angry. From lovers to strangers, it all happened in a moment. When he tried to kill me, our fate was sealed. Michael, you'll marry me after the divorce, right? Lily appeared at the courthouse, disheveled and clutching Michael's arm. She looked mentally unstable. You slut, you think I'd marry you? Never. You seduced me and ruined my life. You can't have children. Who would want you? Michael pushed her away, and she fell to the ground. She looked at him in disbelief, and he spat on her. You disgust me. Get lost. As Michael turned away, I saw a strange light in Lily's eyes. She got up and grabbed him from behind, holding him tightly. A scream of pain filled the air, shocking everyone. Chapter 17. Looking down, I saw blood dripping from Michael. His white shirt turned red. You promised to marry me after divorcing her. Too late to back out now. You ruined my life. I won't forgive you. If I can't have you, no one will. Ha ha ha! Lily laughed maniacally, stabbing Michael repeatedly. She had hidden a knife in her pocket. By the time people reacted, Michael was barely conscious, rushed to the hospital. Since our divorce wasn't finalized, I had to go too. Lily was taken away by the police, her eyes empty as she stared at her bloody hands. She had lost her mind, driven mad by Michael. In my past life, he killed me. In this life, he drove Lily insane. Women must choose wisely, or risk falling into an abyss. Who's the patient's family? A nurse called out urgently outside the operating room. I am, but we're in the process of divorcing. You're still his wife and can sign for the surgery. But he has severe internal injuries and blood loss. Even if he survives, he may be paralyzed or in a coma. Consider if you want to proceed. Without hesitation, I signed the consent form. Chapter 18. But I signed to refuse treatment. This was a rare opportunity. Why waste resources on scum like him? Better to give him a quick death, preventing further harm. After signing, I contacted the crematorium to take his body. The same day, they cremated him, and I scattered his ashes in the same drainage ditch where he had thrown mine. This was for my unborn child, hoping they find a loving father in their next life. Goodbye, scum. Watching his ashes wash away, I felt a weight lift. With the insurance payout, I would live comfortably. He owed me this. He deserved his fate. Karma had come full circle. Lily learned about her infertility from me and had planned to confront Michael at the divorce. But her madness was unexpected. She would spend the rest of her life in prison, reflecting on her actions. But in her state, reflection seemed impossible. It didn't matter to me. She was punished, and that was enough. My adoptive mother went mad upon hearing the news, wandering the streets searching for Lily. One day, she stepped into traffic and was hit by a truck, dying instantly. In my past life, they killed me. Now, one was insane, and two were dead. Karma had come full circle. I was ready to embrace a new, bright future.